But the purpose, what the format was what we did was invite Mayor Kriseman and we invited Mr. Baker to have a discussion with the executive committee during our formal meeting. And the question that we had asked and talked to the mayor that we wanted to discuss. Now, we're not going to be able to talk to you in 15 minutes is my concern, but those were the two, and I think the one that for us that is most pressing is the rationale behind the decision for the Manhattan Casino, and then in hopes that we can follow up with you with a discussion about the issue regarding the $100,000 in the budget for the comprehensive plan. This is an issue that I have been talking about since I've been back in St. Petersburg, that the way we have approached redevelopment in South St. Petersburg is a hit and miss. And we have not had a comprehensive plan, and the concern that I've had as well as this body is that now that we don't have many assets in South St. Petersburg, exactly what is that plan going to do and how is that plan going to be formulated? So those were kind of the talking points that we wanted to have with you. I'll let you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and my apologies for having to scoot out early. I've had something on my calendar that's in Childs Park neighborhood for several weeks now, and I made a commitment to those folks that I was going to go there for that event, and so I want to make sure I'm there. But I felt it was important to come here too, and at least give you some time, because I know there's questions about Manhattan Casino and what we're doing as we go forward with that. And so let me tell you kind of the history from the point in time where that property was vacated. Our goal throughout has always been, we wanted to have something in that facility that would honor the history of that facility, recognizing the important role that the casino played in the community during its lifetime and when it was really in its heyday. But equally important to that was to make sure that whatever we did was going to be sustainable. And by that I mean it was going to be there for more than a year or 2, 3, 4. We wanted to see a business there that's going to be there for a long time and had the resources to make sure it would be there for a long time. What we didn't want to see happen was a business come in there and not have the financial wherewithal that a year or 2 later it was gone, and then the community has another letdown. We start the whole process over again, and we start trying to find somebody else. So that was the way we approached it. First thing we did was to do an RFP out to the community, putting out that that's exactly the parameters of what we're looking for. We had 2 businesses that responded to the RFP. And after we reviewed both of the proposals, we came to the conclusion that they did not meet those requirements and those criteria that we were looking at. Our biggest concern was we didn't think they were going to be sustainable. Neither of the businesses that had submitted had any experience managing a restaurant of any significant size greater than a few tables, and certainly didn't have any experience managing an upstairs entertainment and event space. And so our concern was that we put them in there, we were setting them up for failure too, and that doesn't benefit the community, and that wouldn't benefit them either. And so we didn't want to do that. And so we rejected both proposals. Several months went by, and we then received an unsolicited bid. This was a company and a group that had formed that submitted a proposal that tried to address basically what we had put out in the RFP. Talked about what they wanted to do for programming of the facility and for, in particular, that second floor, but also talked about from a restaurant standpoint what they wanted to do and why they would be sustainable. As is our city process, when that happens, we see if there's a deal that we can work out with them that we would be comfortable with, and if so, then we put a notice out to the rest of the community that you have 45 days. If you have any interest in submitting a proposal, please do so. We then received 3 additional proposals. After we looked at the other 3, only one of those other proposals we felt had any merit to it at all and deserved us to take a deeper dive and look into it. And so then we really had the 2 proposals that we kind of narrowed it down to. One was from the Callaloo group, the other was from the Legacy. When we took a look at both, there was again the criteria that we looked at. Predominantly, again, most important is the business going to honor the history and the legacy of that facility? And then secondly, do they have a good financial plan, and is it sustainable, and will they be there for long term? But there were some other things that we were interested in seeing is what was their commitment to hiring from within the CRA? Are they going to hire people and give job opportunities to people living within the CRA? And then another component is there a plan in place to create some type of an apprenticeship program to give people a glide path to potentially owning their own restaurant? And so we looked at both plans very carefully, gave consideration to both of them, and ultimately we ended up choosing the Callaloo group. And the reason that we chose that group was they had a plan in place that would again honor the history and the legacy of that facility. And they had the financial wherewithal to not only get the restaurant up and running, the whole facility up and running within a couple of months, but to be able to keep it going for years. And that was important. Again, we didn't want to see that turnover. They also had made a commitment to hire from within the CRA. And we're talking about a total of 25 jobs that will be hired when they open their doors, and to put an apprenticeship program in place for that facility as it moves forward to try and create a glide path so that people within the community can start getting the tools to create their own businesses and open their own businesses and have the tools to do that. And so we're now at a point where we are in the contract negotiations with the Callaloo group. The contract gives us an opportunity to
facility back online before the holidays. I understand what you're saying about getting jobs before the holidays. My question though is this, and then piggybacking what our president just said, I do not believe that we saw any kind of canvassing of the community around the facility to get people's input as to best use for that place or what they would like to see placed in it. And so my only concern is, although you mentioned that pricing and quality and service were issues, I disagree with that. I think marketing was a more significant issue that wasn't done correctly. But nonetheless, if we had the community's buy-in as to what should go there, they would also tell us what kind of price point they'd like to see, what kind of food price they want to see there. So going forward, would you or your people have the ability to mentor or provide mentorship to the new management group to ensure that they do not fail the same way that the past group failed? To ensure that that facility becomes sustainable.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really important that we have something that's going to be there and it's not going to be a revolving door where it's there a year or two or gone, and it's gone. We've got a restaurateur who's been in the business for 40 years, so I have confidence in his abilities. Vincent Jackson is involved in 7 other restaurants, all of which are successful. But yeah, we plan on being very engaged with them to make sure that they are successful. We did have several open houses at the facility itself where the community was invited to come in and give us some feedback. That happened before the RFPs even took place. And so we have gotten some community input, but yeah, as to your question about mentoring and trying to ensure the success and the sustainability of the site, absolutely.
Just based on your conversation here today, am I to understand that it's a done deal? Callaloo has a contract,
it's not a done deal until council signs off on a contract. We have sent them a draft of a contract. They are reviewing that draft now. If they accept the draft as it's written, then it will go to city council for them to vote on it. If they don't, then it comes back to us with their recommended changes. We have to decide whether it's acceptable to us or not. Thank you. I am confident that I think we'll be able to reach an agreement.
So it has to go back.
But it does go to council for the council to ultimately have to approve the contract.
And one of the things that I would like the executive committee to do at the end of this, I really wish that we would have had more time to have a discussion about this issue, because I think at the core of it, and I'm speaking for Maria, is that typically what happens in the Black community is we get things done for us, and there's never the opportunity to build capacity in the community to be successful. And we continue to head down that path, and until we get that right, where our strategies are aimed at building the people and the businesses within the Black community, will we ever have a community that's seamless? It's easy to bring somebody in with 7 years of restaurant experience and say, oh, we're gonna hire you. We wanna hire people. One of the reasons that the NAACP took the risk that it did this fall in our Freedom Fund and holding it in the community, because we wanted to begin to hold the discussion that we have Black businesses in St. Petersburg that have the capacity, if they ever get the opportunity. But when we continue to press the issue that we need to bring somebody in here to do it for us, and when we fail, we don't build on our capacity, that becomes the social justice issue that we want to keep pushing to anybody that's elected and anybody is in office. You will never ever see any success in this community by finding somebody else that can always do it better. That's the message. So thank you.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a great day.
One of the things, because while the tape is running, that I want to go on the record. Want to come in? Oh. I want to go on the record of saying is that I'm very disturbed by those antics. The invitation went out to the mayor to come to this event, and the mayor or no one on his staff contacted me to say that he would be here or not be here. As a result, I then extended the invitation to Mr. Baker for an hour. I'm not sure who's advising the mayor, but I don't play games. And I'm offended, and I feel that this was very disrespectful to this executive committee, that all somebody needed to do was pick up the phone and say that the mayor would or would not be here. Simple as that. I don't know his schedule. I don't look at Facebook and say, well, the mayor's going to be here, so the NAACP cannot schedule an event because the mayor is not going to be available. We would have certainly accommodated him if, in fact, someone would have communicated with me, but there was not a choice. And then to just show up, that is not cool. If I heard, and I got 15 minutes. And I, excuse me one second, Susan. And I got 15 minutes. His supporters, I'm sorry. That is just not cool, and it's a kind of disrespect to the Black community, and we support it.
Yes, we do.
That's the problem with me. That's a problem that I have, that it's okay. Somebody said it's okay just to walk in there and say you got 15 minutes. Susan?
Yeah, I mean, I, you know, not speaking to the mayor, but I certainly know there was no disrespect. He had a very important event this morning that was the neighborhood cleanup, and I know his schedule was tight. It was the last I heard, he was trying to get here, but he wasn't sure how the other event, the timing on that. So I'm sure there was no disrespect. His schedule is super tight, right? Yeah, his schedule is super tight right now, so literally, he sometimes can find 15 minutes of time. But obviously, it's important enough for him that he left the neighborhood cleanup that he has committed to for a long time, so.
And we don't want to disrespect, Brother Baker's time either.
Right.
So we don't want to get into
Right.
this, that, the other. Keep
Wait a minute, Ms. Madam. One of the reasons that I wanted that to go on the record, because it was disrespectful. It doesn't matter about what somebody think it wasn't. It was. Because it was simply a matter of picking up the phone or responding to the email, period. At this point,
We got a tight schedule too, so we only got 5 minutes.
So you start pacing the phone
I appreciated that, and that was communicated to me over and over again, and even confirmed by Mr. Baker. And I'm sure he's just as busy. But again, those are the kinds of things we allow. And when we allow it and we support it, it happens, and people are okay with it. Mr. Baker, please forgive my tone. Let me introduce you properly. This is, I certainly don't have to introduce him, but as I said, Mr. Baker and Mr. Kriseman were invited to have a discussion with the executive committee. One of the talking points that we wanted with Mr. Baker was that it was brought to our attention that Mr. Baker went to the Congressional Black Caucus in Washington. And I was shocked, I must say, because I have attended, I've never known Republicans to attend, and beyond, quite honestly, I've never known white ones to Republicans to attend. So I was very curious as to what happened in Washington, number one, what did he learn from that experience, and how would that impact his policy in the African American community in St. Pete. And then when I extended his invitation to an hour, I sent back out questions, and our youth works chair presented some other questions. Let us know what your time is looking like. And
It was other white people there, I was there.
White Republicans.
We've been hard to call you white.
Black Republicans, that was new to me. So when I was happy, because I think until we start eliminating some of these party lines and start electing people based on who's the most qualified, will we ever start to see any substantive change in our communities? But
and care about the future of our city and care about where we're going. I do have a very busy schedule, but nothing is more important to me than this group. And because I understand the history of this group, I've worked with you all closely over the years, and I did go to the Congressional Black Caucus a couple weeks ago, and the first question I get, in fact, Roland Martin, I met him there, and he was kind of stunned that I was there, because he's been trying to get Republicans to come to the Congressional Black Caucus. It's not a partisan thing. It's an issue dealing with some of the urban issues around the country. It's a group that gets together and does best practices. And when he found out I was there, he actually set up his video and interviewed me, because it was such a unique thing. I came not because of a partisan thing. I don't think it should. I don't think the city elections should be partisan. First of all, they've never been partisan up until this mayor. They just haven't been. And I've been involved in every mayor's election going back to Bob Holt. And they've always been about the city, not about Democrats and Republicans. You all know Dave Fisher. Dave Fisher was a Democrat. I ran Dave Fisher's campaigns for mayor, because we didn't care back then whether you were Republican or Democrat. Because of what you ran, you have to sign an oath when you go to file for this race, that you're going to run as a nonpartisan. And I'm going to continue to do that and not get into the partisan shit back and forth. The reason I went to it, is because I will go anywhere that people are talking about the issues of people in our community that are in economically depressed areas, that have crime issues, education issues, where whoever is talking to them about that. I want to always reach out and get best practices that I can take back to the city of St. Pete and work on and help with. And issues, we want there, as you know, that there are different sub-seminars that you go to at these meetings, And the ones that really stick in my mind were the ones dealing with education of our youth, which is so important. You all know where my heart has been in education in the past. And ones dealing with public safety in our community and the relationship between the police department and the people in the community. And those are both very important issues nationally right now, and very important issues here. And you hear a lot about a lot of the best practices in the schools and the education and how we improve the education of our community. And we had a lot of good discussions back and forth on the need for people to have different opportunities to make sure their children succeed. And there was some discussion about apprenticeship programs during that period of time. As you all may recall, I had the Mayor's Mentors and More program, which was a broad program to support our public schools. We worked in everything from incentive programs for principals, teacher loans, so that teachers could get down payments. If they taught in a public school in St. Pete, get down payments, 0 interest rate. It was, I think they were $20,000, we used state housing money to give a teacher a $20,000 interest-free loan if they taught in a public school in the city of St. Pete and wanted to use that loan to get a deposit on a house in the city of St. Pete. And then if they continued to teach in the city for 10 years in a public school, then we forgave the loan over a period of time. It was a great incentive. We raised the Mayor's Doorway Scholarships, the Mayor's Doorway Scholarship program. The Mayor's office had never done this before, but I went out and raised private money. All the school programs, by the way, I worked with private money, raising it in our community. And we would tell a child in 6th grade that if had a free and reduced lunch program, if your attendance is good, if your conduct is good, and if you have at least a C average, and you have drug-free and crime-free between 6th grade and 12th grade, we give you a 4-year college scholarship. That's a great incentive for a child to stay good during that period of time and to work forward. I always say, you talk about opportunity, you talk about hope. If you can get an education so that you can support yourself at the end of the day, that's opportunity and hope, right? So we wound up raising enough private money to give 1,000 of those college scholarships when I was mayor of St. Pete. 93% of those kids graduated from high school and went on to college during that period of time. 93%. That's a remarkable statistic for the kids in the free and reduced lunch program. And then they went on to college. I put online what's called the Baker Blueprint, which is my plan to move us forward. Where do I want to go from here? I encourage all of you to go online. It's bakerstpete.com. And it's got a blueprint that talks about what my positions are going forward on public safety, on education in schools, on neighborhoods and our neighborhood programs, on our economic development jobs in our community, whether it's Midtown, downtown, around the city, and on public services and for the city. All those areas are covered with a significant number of new ideas for the community to go forward. One of the things I've said in there is I will commit to do another 1,000 scholarships for kids going forward, raising private money to do that, because I still have kids, I have parents and kids come up to me now, once a week, twice a week, and say, you gave me a doorway scholarship, my child did this, you gave them a doorway, they did this. I think that's a great impact in their lives. One thing that we talked about at the Black Caucus was what was the apprenticeship programs, right? And I'm a big believer in that. I want to add that. I didn't do that before, I want to add it. It's something new that I want. So I've been endorsed by the Association of Builders and Contractors. They call it ABC, it's the Contractors Association for the region. And one thing ABC does right now is they do an apprenticeship program. And that apprenticeship program, it's in the construction industry. There's a lot of jobs available. Electricians, plumbers, carpenters, masons. There's a lot of jobs in the construction industry, and they go on. And ABC, this group I'm working with, they need people so much. They started an apprenticeship program, and it's in Tampa. And what they do is they take somebody that's got a high school graduation or a degree, or they've got a GED, and they'll take that individual and they will put them through they'll hire them. So they get a job, and they start out in a job making money day one, right? And then at night, they will take them to they'll send them to a certification class, and they'll pay for the certification class for the student. So for 4 years, they get certified, and then when they're done, they don't just have a job, they got a career, because they might be a certified electrician, and
Just wanna ask a question. So they hired them in this certification program for day one. Do you know what the rate of pay is?
I don't, I can find that out, but
I could answer part of that for you, Maria. So I spoke to the steelworkers union, and they told me at 18 years old, a young person from school starts at $18 an hour.
Wow.
At 18 years old.
And that's coming out of high school.
So the point is this, you know, you all know, I'm in the community all the time. I'm talking to folks all the time. That's what I do. And I talk to these kids that are 18, and let's say they're not planning on going to college, or maybe they didn't have the grades to go to college, they didn't have money to go to college. And maybe they need to support themselves so they can go to college. So what are the choices for them? There are no choices for them. And when they don't have a choice, they make bad choices, right? And so you need to find a way for them to make money while they're studying at the same time. And this apprenticeship program does. By the way, they do 600 of these students in Tampa right now. 600. ABC work with 600. They got 0 in St. Pete right now. 0. I've already met them. I will brand it as the mayor's apprenticeship program in St. Pete. We will start it on day one. We will work with ABC, and by the way, the Tampa Bay Builders and Contractors, which is another construction group, they also agreed to be part of it as well. And so that you can get the jobs and you can get the folks working right away and into the jobs. Now, an interesting point on it is I've asked them, because again, I'm talking to kids, and they say, well, you know, I don't have a job, I have a car, and the bus, you know, if you got, let's say you have a construction job in Brandon, and you're working it, how do you get it, right? Try to take a bus from St. Pete to Brandon to the construction job. So I asked ABC, I said, what do you do about that? And they didn't really have a solution to it. And my concern is, if there is no solution, maybe the kids just don't get the job, right? So I've talked to them, I said, what if I raised the money for the doorway scholarships? By the way, every doorway scholarship probably was about $16,000, $18,000 a piece, something like that. So what if I were to raise a transportation scholarship for the folks that sign up for the apprenticeship? What if I go to the private sector again and figure out how to raise money for a transportation scholarship? Well, how do you do that? Well, I don't want to buy cars and get insurance and all that sort of stuff. So what if you were to work with Uber and Lyft and just say, you know, how much does it cost to get this 18-year-old, 19, 20, could be 25-year-old back and forth to a job for a year, and then to the certification class? How much would that cost? And then work with Lyft and Uber and see, can we get a package deal or something, right? Especially if you buy a lot of them, can we get a package deal to make it so that we can get these kids back and forth to the jobs? And ABC loved the idea. They love the idea. They're already paying for the certification class, so I don't need to raise the money for that. So I can focus on the transportation piece of it, the brand, and then I would also focus on the recruitment part of it too, because we've got to go to the schools, the high schools, and let the kids know these are opportunities when they become 18 years old. You know, we talked a lot about.
So let me be very clear on the transportation piece, ma'am. You got the transportation piece. Kid lives in South St. Petersburg. You're proposing a proposal with a plan where the Uber would drive that kid to and from work or
Yes, just like, I mean, that's what
every
Uber
day.
does, right? That's what Uber does. You call them, pick you up, you go. And the idea is, can we work with Uber or Lyft? And I would meet with them and talk with them and say, can we put together maybe I don't know if they will or not. Maybe they'll give you a discount on that if you buy a ton of them, right? And so you can do that. They have programs and other things that they do that. So can we do that with them on that? I don't know, but I do recognize transportation is one of the issues you have to deal with.
One of the barriers.
If you don't
Exactly.
solve the transportation issue, the kid never has an opportunity, or I shouldn't say kid, they're 18, 20 years old, they don't have an opportunity.
I have a question.
Sure.
You went to the Congressional Black Caucus. Were you aware that there is a certified Black Caucus here in Highlands now?
I was not.
Okay. I'm Trevor Mann. I'm the president of that Black Caucus.
Okay.
I'm sure me and you have met before.
Okay.
I know who you are, and I think you know who I am. So I would like to know, why would you not come locally to the Black Caucus first, or the NAACP, to find out what we want here locally, instead of going to DC, for them to give you suggestions to bring back to somewhere that may not.
Listen, I'm ready to go anywhere, either way, I'll come to you. It's interesting to be criticized for going to Washington to try to learn.
Not
I want to go to Washington, I'm going to go anywhere, anywhere. And you can criticize it, it sounds like a good. But I'll come to you too, I'll I'd be happy to come to you anytime you want.
That's not criticizing, I was just asking questions.
Okay.
If you want to do what's right for the black community here, how do you not reach out to those organizations first? Before you Photoshop a DC.
Excuse me, folks, can we please just have one conversation? I can't hear what he's saying because of the side talk.
Please
Please,
ask the question.
please, hold the question, don't anybody hear what's on.
Yeah, I'm just.
I get it, I understand. I understand the point.
About what's going on here locally in the African American.
Well, let me, and what I wanted to try to clarify, because the NAACP did invite Mr. Baker, and he did respond. Mr. Baker reached out to me a couple of days after the election, and what I said to him, I was not at a place where I wanted to talk about the election or talk about politics. Please give me some time. And when I was at a place that I felt comfortable talking to him, I did call him back out of respect, and we met for 3 hours yesterday. So I don't know what community he's not being responsive, but what I don't want to do is turn this into something that is putting out something that is not true. I have not met with the Democratic Black Caucus. Hold on, because what I want to make sure, what I want to make sure we're doing is addressing the discussion with the NAACP Executive Committee. We don't mind other individuals asking questions, but we don't want to do is put stuff out there that's not true. So I wanted to make sure that it was clear that Mr. Baker has responded, and I'll go on record. Mr. Baker will tell you that when he was the mayor of St. Petersburg, that I held Mr. Baker accountable, just like I'm doing Mr. Kriseman. But it wasn't when I picked up the phone during Hurricane Irma. Mr. Baker didn't think about whether I voted or supported for him. He thought about the fact that people needed help. And he responded, he didn't care about, see if I was the Democrat, Republican. And so I just want to make sure that we get the facts out there, and that when we are holding public officials accountable, it is based on their record. It is not a personal attack or trying to skew something that did not happen. So I just wanted to clarify your point that he has been responsive.
And let me just respond. Yeah, sure. I just want to say that I'm my bad if I didn't know where to go, but I'll go. So if you want me to come up, so let me know.
I have a question. Mr. Baker, how would you leverage employability with the apprentice programs? In other words, that everybody would be included, there would be no one excluded, as you know, discrimination in employment, discrimination in the marketplace. So how would you leverage employability, making sure that everyone had equal opportunity to get those apprentices jobs?
I think that's great. And you do it by, you keeping track of who's getting the jobs and where they're getting the jobs and who's applying the jobs and that sort of thing. And I would work closely with ABC to make sure that I will tell you, from my discussions with them, I feel that they have a real need for employees. They have a real need for people to take these jobs. So they're completely motivated to take folks into the program so that they can get the people the training, get the people the jobs, and because they have construction jobs they have to get done. And so that we have people that we can get into these programs and make sure that they can get it done. And so I didn't answer your question. It's that I have no problem at all saying, okay, how many African Americans do you have in this program? Are you getting folks from our community in through that apprenticeship program? I have no problem at all.
Madam President, it's on the apprenticeship. My son went through IBEW, I'm figuring to the Newton, and what they do is they get state grants and they get also federal grants to bring these young men in, and they do pay them a good wage going in. And when they're done, they make as much as $25 an hour, so it's a living wage. And anyone that want to come, you know, right now we got, I think, over $500,000 at another technical college for public works scholarships. My son also graduated from there with a bunch of accreditations and stuff. However, those classes, when they house 40 kids, they have 5 or 10 kids in them, you know. So the opportunities are there. You just need someone that's going to champion and bring them forward.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question, because over the past year, I think they got really take part in the community and consider meetings, and one thing that I'm noticing, not just with the city, but the other school board, is the idea of accountability. It, on the surface, it looks like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So, you know, the devil is in the details. And that devil in the details, what would you propose to do as far as getting some kind of a accountability mechanism within your, within the city, well, within the city, so that we can tear apart a situation, we can look at a contract and say, hey, yes, he did this correct, he did that, because we're not seeing the results. They're good programs, but we're not seeing the results in the community. So what is going to be done as far as accountability? Would you be, you can't have the fox. So it's like almost like an outside auditor that will just review your processes.
Perfect. I think first, when you get into accountability, you have to identify what is it that you want to measure, right? What is it that you want to be able to identify as are the important things to measure, right?
Yeah.
And then you have, well, whatever it is to do. So, and then you have to measure them. And then you have to make sure that the data you're getting is accurate data. Right, so that the fox isn't in the right? So I'll give you an example of the way I approached it before, because I established, and we could get the details of whatever we want to get into, but I established something called the city scorecard for the city. And the city scorecard, we met with the community and we met with departments around the city, and we tried to say, okay, is the city operating in an efficient manner? Is the city operating in a way that's propelling the objective of improving the quality of life for the people that live? Is it doing it, right? And so we broke it down to those 5 areas I just talked about: public safety, neighborhood, education, and then we said, okay, well, how do we determine? How do we know whether it's actually doing it? So, for instance, in public safety, well, you probably want to know what your crime rates are, of course, so whether they're going up or down, and you want to make sure that they're being measured accurately, which is important. And then you want to make sure that, but there are other things like, how long does it take to respond to a priority 911 call, right? So if you call for a police officer or a medical, how long does it take for them to respond? So I can tell you, for instance, when I took office, it was 7.1 minutes to respond to a priority 1 police call. And then the national standard is 7 minutes, it was 5.8 minutes when we left. We did that for 160 performance measures across, and metrics across the board, to see, are we accomplishing, are we moving the dial forward on all of these things? And then I was suspicious, because people don't want to, if you're the head of this department, you don't want bad news to come out of it, right? So how do I know that they're just not sending you news that they want to send you, right? So we had an internal auditor for the city, and we would go through, there was an internal auditor for the city that was separate, that reported only directly to I think it was the city administrator at the time, so didn't report to any other department, and their job was to go in addition to other things, they would audit various departments at various times, but they would also audit the data we were getting to make sure that nobody was cooking the books within the city to give us the data that we want. So the first thing, and we did this across the board, I can tell you how long it takes to fix a sidewalk, I can tell you what our school grades were based on the student achievement scores in the schools, we can tell you how long it took to get the building permit from the building permit department. There's a lot of issues in that department right now. So across the board, we would work to do that. So whatever it is, whatever it is we think we need to be measured, I'm a big, and by the way, I'm not a 20,000 feet guy. I'm an in the details guy. I do believe in looking at it from the 20,000, but I also am in the details because I want to know, because that's where things are going to go right. Yeah.
So I have two questions, and first one to me is most important. So I've done my research, I've asked around, I've read, and I know you were very involved in education. And Lori Matway was your deputy, I don't know the title, but you're very...
She's a school administrator.
Very, very hands-on. I've heard you talk a lot about our older population, students, scholarships, applications, jobs. But as we know, it's about our babies. And all research points to early education. If we wait to third grades, we wait too long, it's too late. All failing schools, I don't want to regurgitate everything that you know, but what are you going to do to work with the schools in our community that are failing our black children?
Right.
I mean, at a young age.
Right. Well, first I would say the old Jordan School, you might recall, was falling down when I took office, like a lot of these buildings were falling down when I took office. And we rebuilt it, we did a Head Start program at Jordan School. I know there are other early education programs as well, a lot of them, and I believe that, I guess my point is, I do believe in early education. I believe before the kids even get to kindergarten, first grade, there's issues to make sure that they're prepared to do that as well. So I think we have to look at that. As far as the elementary schools in general, we had 20, I'm not sure what the number is right now, but when I left office, we had 27 elementary schools in the city of St. Pete. We were very focused on this. I had recruited business partners for every one of those elementary schools. And what they did is they would come in, and all this, by the way, was with the endorsement and the support of the superintendent of schools, the school board, and the principals at the schools. So I never did anything that they felt was in conflict with what they wanted. I always would go to the superintendent. On a quarterly basis, I would meet with the superintendent. I would say, this is what I'm thinking about doing to help the schools. If you don't want me to do it, I won't do it. But if you think that would help, I'll do it. And so one of the programs we did was we would go to we would go and get corporate partners for every school. So they're recruiting a corporate partner from Mount Vernon. And they were focused on, I brought the job, we brought the job part. I cleaned out that 15 acres, we brought a job for that. We have job training in that to give individuals the ability to get and hold the jobs that we have. You know, lots of folks think, especially in campaigns, oh, I'm going to get jobs, I'm going to get jobs, I'm going to get jobs. I believe in getting jobs, but if folks don't have the tools to be able to get all the jobs, they're not going to go anywhere. So that's why I'm programming, and by the way, my apprenticeship program, by the way, is going to start with construction. But it's not going to end. I'm going to work with workmen and say, because I know, for instance, we have a demand also in the automotive industry. Automobile mechanics can make $100,000 a year. So without a college education. So I get an apprenticeship. I work with the automobile industry just like I'm working with the construction industry. And I get with workmen and say, what are the other needs? We're not. I'm not about individuals. I don't want to train people for things we don't have jobs. But I want to identify where are the jobs out there, where are the demands, where are the employers crying for employees that they can't get qualified employees, and then I will form, as long as it doesn't take a college education, I'll form an apprenticeship program under that area to try to bring the individual into the training so they can get the jobs. I think that is how you get folks to do exactly what you're asking them.
Mr. Baker, as you're talking about jobs, I'm responding to my sister's question over here. It occurs to me, I heard rumors some time ago that she supported government staff. And the reason I'm bringing that up is this. Several years ago, we had an opportunity, and you yourself alluded to something else, I think you just read it wrong, an opportunity to bring a light rail system and to expand the rail system instead of Florida. Governor Scott turned it down. Huge money from Washington to build our rail system. That would have added hugely to our transportation infrastructure here in this region. There is now a survey being done that shows that transportation, light rail transportation, is in the forefront of many people's minds now. And you said earlier on, how do people get to these jobs? How do they get to the apprenticeship program? So it appears to me that it would be like a hand-in-glove situation to foster more acceptance of the light rail system or a greater and better public transportation system in our region that connects St. Petersburg, all over St. Petersburg, or Pinellas County, to Tampa and places north of Tampa.
Connect St. Pete to Orlando.
Give me your first on board.
That's a great question. It's a broader transportation question, right? And if you I was on T-BARTA, the regional transportation authority for a while, and so here's the part. If you build, and I'm not, and by the way, everything's on the table as far as I'm concerned. transit line, light rail is on the line, everything is on the table. I want to do something that makes sense. And I'm going to analyze everything on the table that somebody puts before me, and I'm going to say, this is the cost of it, this is what it's going to benefit, and this is how long it's going to take to do, right? For instance, let's say you were to build a light rail from St. Pete to Tampa. First of all, how long is that going to take, right? How much money is it going to cost? And by the way, they take a very long time, 10 to 20 years to do before you're actually light. So, and then how much does it cost, right? And then is there going to be a benefit to it? Now, if I'm somebody that's living in Palmetto Park, right? 19 years old, I'm trying to get a job, and I'm getting a construction job. And 20 years from now, we've just built a rail that goes from downtown St. Pete to downtown Tampa through West Shore Gateway. Well, my construction job may or may not be on that rail, right? It may be up in Tarpon Springs, it may be anywhere in the community, right? Or my other job may be anywhere in the community. Our jobs are all over the place, right? So when I have had lengthy talks, we have Jabil here. Jabil is one of the top technology companies in the world. We don't even realize it. We have a couple thousand employees. Their headquarters is here, but they have like 160,000 employees around the world. So but that's pretty close to everything. But so they help build the Apple phones that you might have, and the other phones that you have. They're doing that. So I've talked with those folks about all the future of technology. Where's the future of technology? You'll be next. The future of technology, and specifically about the transit issue. And so the debate, the question going on is, where is transit going? Where's transportation going? We now have these Google cars, right, that drive themselves. And where is that going to be in 10 years? Where is that going to be in 10 years? And now we have Lyft and Uber, things that 10 years ago we wouldn't even thought of. Right? And yet, how has Uber and Lyft already changed transportation? And is transportation, are you going to be able to put, again, 20 years from now, by the time you build one of these systems, are you going to be able to put something that can be self-driven, and is the whole system going to change to do that compared to do the system? I'm not saying, yes, we have to do this, I'm saying you have to look at all the options and see what you're going to want to have. The objective is to get a child in a job. I'm kind of impatient, right? So I'm trying to get an apprenticeship program right now. I don't want to wait 20 years for them to be able to get to someplace where there's not even a job, right? I want to find out a solution now where they can get to that job right now. And to me, looking at things like Lyft and Uber, right now, if I could get the funding to do that, which I think I can, that'll help right now. But I'm absolutely open to light rail, transit, other things to look at as we go forward. But that's
the response, and just to go back real quick. I think the response, but I've got an FDR mindset. It's not just about the immediate. It's about the future benefits.
I agree.
And if FDR had a mindset of my instant gratification, a lot of things that happen that we're benefiting from now wouldn't happen back then.
Right.
And so I would urge you,
I'm with you.
and I understand the impatience now. I get it with myself sometimes, but I urge you, please, as a regional leader, let's open that public transit conversation.
I'm absolutely for it. I'm absolutely for the discussion. And just, I'm also that too. In 1999, I started the effort through my job at the chamber, and I propelled it when I was mayor, because we have no north-south expressway in Pinellas County. And the US 19 was kind of stuck, and there was an effort to try to make that into more of a limited access, controlled access corridor. And I actually presented to DOT the idea of connecting that at 118th Avenue to 275, so that you could actually go from downtown St. Pete all the way across 118th corridor to US 19, control access, and go all the way up to the north part of our county, so people can get to different places on a more easy basis. I will tell you that will be done probably about 20 years after I first brought it up in 1999. So I get what you're saying. I do know that you have to look for the future and plan for it. And I don't want you to get any impression I'm against light rail, transit, or any of that stuff. All I'm saying is that I am for looking at all options and trying to see what is best.
Well, we're gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna take one more question, then we're gonna have presidential privilege, and then we're gonna shut it down at 11:45. Sorry.
Okay.
Can I ask you about the
By
flaw?
the way, I will stay after if somebody wants to talk to me.
Yeah, I wanted to
I'm
backtrack.
sorry, now, what's your name?
Keith Mason. Yeah.
Keith Mason?
Yeah. I just wanted to backtrack real quick to Reverend Jordan's question. I thought that was a very important question about how you would address racism, systemic racism at an economic, political, and societal level in this city. I felt like your response really did not address the depth of the question. I thought it deserved a little bit more.
Okay.
Your response was essentially, I would tell people they can't be racist anymore every time I fired a policeman. And I feel like that's a very broad question that deserves a more nuanced answer.
So why don't you help me with that and suggest to me where you're going? Because
No,
I've answered it, so why don't you give me a little bit of idea what you think?
I'm just
Give me
saying
some specific
that.
questions.
I'm just saying that he asked what you would do to combat systemic racism at an economic level in St. Pete, at a societal one, and politically. And your response was basically, I would tell people that they can't be racist anymore, and that when I was mayor, I fired a policeman one time for being racist.
Okay, well, I think you're over.
Well, I'm giving you an opportunity to elaborate.
I'll expand a little bit. I think, first of all, I would go back to you saying that you're kind of diminishing the idea that the mayor should set a very strong example, okay? And I invite you to go back and read the papers and look at the attacks I got for doing what I did. And I think that when the mayor does set that example, I don't think that's just always part of it. That's an important thing to do. It's important to set that example. And sometimes it's tough to do. Sometimes it's real tough. Sure. Okay, that was it. Go back and read it. And, but I would also go beyond that. I would say that you have to, across the city, you have mechanisms in place that you have to enforce to make sure that people are not discriminated. And I invite you to go back and look at my record on that too. We had a very broad anti-discrimination law, and I enforced it completely during my entire term of office, and I will continue to do that as we go forward.
So you think that way?
I just want to hear one minute off the mayor, from a council perspective.
Wait a
Answer this
minute.
question. If I may, I served under 3 mayors on St. Pete City Council for 8 years. This mayor fought a police chief that was racist, called African Americans, I'm born and raised 4 blocks from here, called African Americans orangutans or gorillas. A deputy mayor, Goliath Davis, African American, was let go because he didn't attend the funeral of a police officer that got assassinated. Under our current mayor, which I served under, we have city workers who are writing KKK on vests, on city time, and laying them on African Americans' desks, and they're still working. So you've got to be strong, and it's got to be a zero tolerance against discrimination or racism against anybody, as far as the man at the top. I'm telling you, you can go look at this stuff. All you have to do is Google it, www.google.com. You will see racism is allowed to fester when you tolerate it. But I'm telling you, you've got to be strong on that. And I witnessed it firsthand.
I'm not accusing.
Wait, stop. What we're going to do, because the NAACP after Charlottesville hosted a discussion about racism, we're not going to resolve that issue this meeting. What we will be willing to do is invite Mayor Baker back, because he wasn't invited to the discussion on racism before because he was not the mayor. We invited the mayor. That is a very serious discussion, and it's not one that we're going to play with for political optics. So at the point that we get past this election, whoever is mayor, the intent of the NAACP is to follow up on a real discussion about the issue of racism. So thank you, Mr. Mason, for your question, and hopefully you will participate in future discussions with us.
I went to the town hall. They all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I would love to continue to go to this.
Okay.
I thought it was wonderful.
We want to make sure we give you a membership application back. I'm surprised that I didn't see it being passed around, Madam Secretary. But it's
And the really, if I can say too, Keith, I'm happy to stay afterwards and make sure that you're getting the answer to your question. I
Sure.
may not feel you have that, but I will.
Well, it's not, I was,
Okay, this is the one last question. The Freedom Fund hosted the NAACP hosted Freedom Fund, which you supported. One of our objectives at that Freedom Fund was to bring the event back to the Black community as an example of how we have got to be able to host quality events in our own backyard. We can't expect to just throw something together and expect it to get support. So we did that. The other piece of it was to put a spotlight on the fact that we have qualified Black businesses here. And just like you're talking about the targeted strategy toward apprenticeships, would you support a targeted strategy that provided access and opportunities to the young business owners? And I personally call them future millionaires just to give them an identity, but they were young millennials who already are in business, they recognize some of their challenges in business, and they perform. Would you be in support of us to working with that group to develop a strategy that gave them the access to opportunities that they needed?
Absolutely, and again, the benefit you all have is you just don't have to look at what I say, you can look at what I did as well. And with our Business Assistance Center, that was really largely under Bill Davis at the time, that we did all the, helping small business owners with strategic planning, identifying where's the funding, financing, and things like that. But we actually had an outreach program that went into all parts of the community, especially the Midtown community, and including others. And I went to the businesses and said, how can we help, do you want to be part of this? What do you want? So as far as tying into the program you're talking about, I think that would be a great thing.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Baker, for